Hey guys, welcome to a fresh video here on the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about Zach Tuohy. He has just recently done an interview with Andy Marr on SEN. Now, the full interview is actually available in video format on the SEN YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out. But there were some interesting quotes in there from Zach Tuohy about his time at Carlton. And, firstly, it's done, and I'm not sure how much it's relevant to this playing group. But what's really interesting when we have players come and go, or we have decisions that are made and, you sort of get to a fork in the road, judgment can't truly come until it's all said and done. Now, Zach Tuohy's gone on to retire. He's gone on to be a premiership player at Geelong. He's had an incredible career. I think most of us felt the loss of him, and we enjoyed him at the club, given the story of when he arrived. And it was just really interesting listening to this footage that I'm about to play to you, what actually goes on behind the scenes when it comes to contract negotiation. So I'm going to play you some of the most important bits from the interview and unpack a bit of this discussion.
So you play 120 games at Carlton and you are loved as a Carlton supporter. I can say that, and hopefully you felt that from the other side of the fence. But there comes this moment where you're out of contract, or you want to extend, and the footy club doesn't meet your demands, and you leave the club. I want to know how that they bring you out, they put you up, they give you the jumper, they say you're one of us.
Yep.
And then there's this moment. I don't think there was much between what they were offering and what you wanted.
Yeah.
What happened, and how did that make you feel?
Well, ultimately, really what happened is that I don't think I was actually... I think I was probably not in their long-term plans. That was the feeling I got at the time, and I didn't get on particularly well with Bolts, who was the coach at the time. I don't think he particularly liked me.
So this is really interesting, and firstly, I had no idea that his relationship with Brendan Bolton was what it was. I found a quote from Zach Tuohy on the 21st of March in 2016. So this is, beginning of the new era. We're going into, we've just gone to the draft, the mega draft with Wiedering and Mackay and Curnow and the like. And, Zach Tuohy had the following to say about Brendan Bolton. So Brendan's approach to coaching is that of a teacher. He's worked on the mentality of individual players as well as the whole playing list as a collective. It's hard to manufacture confidence, but there is genuine excitement that we are on the right track as a club and as a playing group. We can't do anything about last season, so we are all focusing on a new opportunity to show the supporters what we can this year. In football, things can change very quickly. We don't want any honourable losses. We want to put in consistent performances for the supporters every week, starting against Richmond. It's an exciting time for everyone at the club, and anything is possible. The quotes. They age like milk at the Carlton Football Club. It's amazing. This part here was also interesting, just around the mechanisms of what the contract breakdown was going to be.
Quite honestly, and for the record, right up until really late in the piece, I was desperate not to leave. I was really upset that I had to leave. It was a really tough decision to make, but it kind of got to a point late in the season and after the season even where it just became untenable. I was so convinced that I wasn't wanted, and that they wanted me gone because maybe I had enough currency to, I think they wanted to get a couple of players in, but I was desperate to stay. Yeah. And there was one aspect of the contract which really indicated to me that they clearly don't think I'm going to be a first team player for the next couple of years. Effectively, I wanted to be off match payments. That was the detail. They were offering me a modest contract, but it also had a lot of match payments. And at that time, I hadn't missed a game it was 3 or 4 seasons without missing a single game. So I asked my manager, I'll take less money than all that's worth, but if you accumulate all the match payments, take less than that, I will take that. But I just don't want match payments, because that tells me they don't think I'll play every week. And that was it. That was the only sticking point, and they kind of weren't willing to budge. And yeah, a few other things happened, which are all outlined in my book, which is coming out soon.
Which we'll talk about in a minute,
It's all outlined in there, but ultimately I was desperate to stay. I loved the place. I really didn't want to go, but it was just untenable for my own sake. I had to leave.
So what we see here is a bit of an insight into the makeup of a contract. So you seemingly have a base salary with match payments. One of them is either heavier than the other, and in theory, kind of makes sense to have more match payments because you hold the player accountable to perform and earn their wage. But I guess on the other end, if you're a player like Zach Tuohy who doesn't know if games are guaranteed and has a feeling that he may be sort of squeezed out in the upcoming season or seasons, it's hard to accept that. So that negotiation to find that middle ground between how much the base salary should be and how much that contract should be, focusing on match payments, that's a really interesting discussion. And maybe we can dive deeper into that in another video. Maybe we can interview somebody on the inside of the industry and understand the mechanisms around the contracts. So that's a really interesting part there.
So 6 years into the career and the start of the journey, was there a broken heart? It's too hard a way, too dramatic a way of putting it, I suspect. But did you feel like everybody at the club fought for you? Because I would have imagined that there would have been a lot of people at the Carlton Footy Club who saw you differently maybe than the head coach, and maybe one or two others. I don't know where the power kind of dynamic lay at the time. But were you disappointed that there weren't other people at the footy club who went to kind of fight for you?
I got on well with everyone, certainly the players. We'd all a great relationship. There was never any tension there. And even in the years prior when, the club wasn't going great on field, I loved it. There was never a point where I was like, I just don't want to be here. When those negotiations were going on, at no point was, I don't remember an admin member or anybody involved who makes in these decisions calling me for a chat and maybe explaining their point of view. That never happened. And I do think they were pretty keen to get a few other players in, and I was pretty obviously and rightly, for the record, third fiddle behind a Sam Doherty, who's genuine star or is and was, and Cade Simpson, who's a club legend. That was our half back line, and they were held in really high regard. And I just thought I was looked at as being pretty disposable, which is fine. That's the name of the game. I've seen it happen to other players, but if a fairly modest request from a contract point of view had been met, I absolutely would have stayed. But it just felt to me like I didn't want me.
So there you go. I found that to be really insightful. I found it to be something that reminded me of the disappointment of losing him. I think in my time as a supporter, the two players that we lost that really went on to, I guess, hurt us because of how much better they became after they left the club. In my experience, Zach Tuohy and Eddie Betts are at the top. I know Jared Waite left and had a good season at North Melbourne, but the two that I just mentioned in particular, they went on to play good football for quite some time. Zach became a premiership player. Eddie Betts, really peaked at Adelaide before returning home. So, yeah, it was nice to see him still talk glowingly of Carlton and the supporter group and still have that love and respect for the club. And I guess it just goes to show you have decisions that you've got to make. And ultimately, in a really weird way, we will judge them in the moment. And then we get to the end when the final judgment comes. And in this case, it was the wrong choice to let him go. We should have kept him. But by the time you're ready to make that judgment, most of the sentiment is, we'll get over it. It's happened now. So what do you think about what you just watched? If you want more context, like I said, go watch the full video on the SCN YouTube channel and maybe come back here. And what does it tell you about the club and maybe where it was compared to where it is? And really just open up about what comes to mind. We'll chat to you soon.